I don't think it matters how much money you spend, it's still not going to be perfect.
Welcome back to the Wild Business Growth Podcast. This is your place to hear from a new entrepreneur or innovator every single Wednesday morning who's turning wild ideas into wild growth. I'm your host, Max Branstetter, founder and podcast producer at MaxPodcasting, and you can reach me at max@maxpodcasting.com to save time with your high-quality podcast. This is episode 142, and today's guest is Dave Heimbuch. Dave is the founder of Hidrent, a super duper cool firefighter helping app that sets up off-duty firefighters with those who need help around the house on a variety of things. He is an awesome person, super creative guy. He has spent some time at some pretty cool companies before even starting Hidrent. And in this interview, he gets real about the sacrifices needed on the financial end and even the non-financial end that go into starting a business like Hidrent. He also talks crowdfunding and some of the biggest entrepreneurship lessons that he has learned. It is Hidrent Heimbuch, aka Dad Joke Dave. Enjoy the show. Alrighty, we are here with Dave Heimbuch, the founder of Hidrent. Not just a single isolated fire hydrant, but a whole startup company called Hidrent that's doing really cool things for off-duty firefighters. Dave, how you doing? Thanks for joining today.
Good, Max. How are you?
I'm doing great. Shout out to our mutual buddy, Pavan Kumar, who connected us in the first place. And as soon as he told me about your story, I was just blown away. So really excited to get into it today. Before we dive into the world of Hidrent, you've had some pretty cool stops along your career early on in the tech space. And I think the one that jumped out to me that I'd love to touch on is the time you spent at Shazam. Shazam is, I've always thought, just one of the coolest technologies out there. I mean, the fact that music and media can be playing out there, like in the atmosphere in the wilderness, your phone can literally like detect it and be like, hey, this is what this is. That just blows my mind. I know you didn't exactly invent that, but you're part of that company, and especially at a time when it's growing and growing. How was your experience at Shazam? How do you look back on that?
Yeah, it was amazing. And just to set the stage, it was 10 years ago actually that I was there. So it was 2011 when I started at Shazam, and I was actually the first person hired in Chicago to open up their Midwest or Central Region sales and marketing office. So yeah, a long time ago, they had offices in New York and LA and San Francisco, but then I was the guy charged with bringing Chicago onto the map. It was very exciting. It was not difficult at all to get a meeting. I'll say that. My job, just with that cool brand, and everyone's like, I love it. What we were charged with though was a little bit different than audio recognition technology. What we were supposed to do, and again, this was 10 years ago, was bring Shazam to your television commercial so that you could Shazam TV and then create an experience or continue to engage with a brand on your mobile device afterwards. So so it was tricky, right? We were doing something that has never been done before, where you're putting a little Shazam bug on a commercial and hoping that users will do it, right? And trying to create a new behavior that has never been done before. So it's like the QR code that you see now. Some people put a QR code on TV and any kind of marketing material, but ours was just audio based, and it was very similar to that. It was fun to go back, I guess, 10 years and remember everything that happened is difficult. But I will say,
I was expecting you to just read line by line from your notebook back then.
No, I wish I had my notes still. It was a crazy and fun time. Again, so I got to meet with companies like Anheuser-Busch. We did a Bud Light commercial. This was back when LMFAO was doing the halftime show with Madonna. I think it was the Giants and Patriots that Super Bowl. But
shout out Party Rock Anthem.
Yeah, it was so cool because we Shazammed a Bud Light commercial, and we made a Bud Light commercial Shazamable was the word we had. And hundreds of thousands of people while they were watching the Super Bowl did it on their phones, and it really was exciting. The hard part about it again was user adoption, getting people to figure out that they needed to do it. Other than the Super Bowl, which is probably not probably the biggest event in broadcast on a yearly basis. It just didn't take off, unfortunately. But they're still a great company, still a great utility, still great technology. We just really couldn't get users to bring out their phone within 15 or 30 seconds and Shazam a spot so they could go ahead and take it with them.
That is really, really cool technology. This is me being interested in technology, but just having no idea how stuff works. Do you have any insight on how Shazam actually does what it does?
I can't tell you. No, I'm just kidding.
Uh,
No, I have. I honestly have no idea. The technology. So maybe you don't know this. Shazam is actually a London-based company. They started in London, and that's still where their headquarters are. They have offices still here in the U.S. But all their tech guys and the guys that created the technology, that is all outside of my scope of understanding. So I wish I could help you, but I can't.
No problem. I don't want to get into any IP wars or anything. It's it's really, really cool technology, and I can imagine that, as you said, it was not difficult at all to get a meeting because it's so exciting and so many potential ways to partner with it.
Yep.
After you had an experience like that, working for a company that has such a unique and kind of novel technology, did you desire to do something similar after that, or you're like, all right, that's kind of enough fast-paced new stuff for me, I'm ready to switch it up?
No, that's just in my DNA, and I've always worked for startups that have a cool technology, usually in the advertising and media space. So I've worked for companies like PhotoBucket and Value Click Media, TapAd, of course Shazam. But anyway, so a lot of these were emerging technologies, and that's the cool thing about being in just the tech space in general is a lot of the things that you're coming across are new. You have to, and again with Shazam, had to create that user adoption, and with a lot of the things that we did in the ad tech world, it was things that had never been done before. And I go back to '99 when I started this, and we were doing. It freaked people out, right? Because they were like, "Oh my gosh, you know what websites I've been to, and you're targeting ads to me based on the websites I've been to? That's crazy." 20 some years ago, and it may still freak some people out, but back then it was a new technology and it was really controversial, and now it's just the norm.
Right. It is amazing how, like, for example, the other day. So I haven't, at least at the time of this recording, I don't think I've eaten at PF Chang's since like high school,
Okay.
which sounds very random, and it is random. But when my buddy Alex and Spencer had moved back into New York after being away for a while, our reunion was a new PF Chang's kind of to go had opened up in Murray Hill, and we were like, "Hey, this is a good option. Let's just grab it and eat it back at one of their places." All I did, like, I literally just Googled PF Chang's once just to see their menu, and since then, the amount of PF Chang's ads on Instagram and Instagram Store, like just from going to their site once and looking at their menu, is off the charts. So it's crazy. And a lot of times it can be helpful. Other times it can be annoying. It really depends. But any way you slice it, there's Big Brother is watching whether you like it or not. Marketers and advertisers are very clever with what they throw your way. Let's get to the Hidrent story. Hidrent, super, super cool company. You are the founder. You've had some incredible growth in the past few years and kind of experiences in all walks of life of a startup. Where did this idea for founding Hidrent and helping out firefighters along with homeowners come from?
So, as I mentioned, I've been in marketing my entire career. I'm not a firefighter, but I did marry into a family of firefighters. My brother-in-law is a firefighter in the Cincinnati area, and he has two children, my niece and nephew.
Shout out Ohio.
Yeah, OH.
IO. There we
Thank
go.
you. Thank you.
Or as we, being from Ohio and going to Indiana, we say OHIU. Well, just
Cool.
I say that, but yeah.
But yeah, so the idea came about. I was living in Chicago, and this was not long after leaving Shazam. And the reason I moved from Chicago to where I am now is Dallas, Texas. But it was really weather based. It's just too dang cold up there. So my wife and kids and I were like, let's get out of here and let's move somewhere south. So at the time I was, we would put our house on the market, but we needed to make some changes to it to make it, more appealing to a buyer. I used Thumbtack to find a contractor to do some things with the stairway spindles, swap them out basically. And I was telling my brother-in-law about it, and he's like, Dave, I don't know if you know this, but I do that stuff all the time, and everyone at our station does that. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, we work 24 hours on, and then we have 48 hours off, and all of us have side hustles. We're always doing something. It's usually like construction handyman related. And I'm like, really? That's cool. And then that marketer side of me kicked in, and I'm like, well, you guys must have your own on-demand home service app, something similar to Thumbtack, Home Advisor, Angie's List, TaskRabbit, you name it. I'm like, you guys must have something, right? Because if I knew that I could have hired a off-duty firefighter instead of, maybe just some regular person, I would have went with the off-duty firefighter because I feel safe. I feel, I trust you guys, and I feel good about giving you my money because you're going to protect me when I need it. And he's like, no, I don't think there is anything. And I'm like, well, how do you get business on your days off? And he's like, word of mouth. And I was like, okay, so there's got to be something. And I searched online, and there wasn't. And that was that light bulb moment where we decided to create it.
Oh, it's a magical thing. I don't know if there's a name for it, but I feel like more and more entrepreneurs I talk to, it's like you get to the phase where you hear about something, you Google it, and it's not there, and that's
Yeah.
the light bulb. It's like the ungoogle moment. The ungoogleable moment is the key insight there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, it comes from a really, really organic place. I mean, literally in your family you married into, and the firefighter community, and then finding out that, oh my God, firefighters are already doing this. They just need a means to do it more efficiently and kind of have it more organized. That's amazing. By the way, I had no idea the typical schedule of firefighters. Is it kind of always been that way?
It has. And unless you know a firefighter or have a firefighter in your family, I guess you just don't think about it or realize it. But yeah, I mean, they sleep at the station. They're there 24 on. And like I said, they have 48 off. So technically, they have 20 days off every month. They're all doing something on the side. I haven't met one that said, no, I've never done anything on my off day to make extra money. They all do.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, having 2/3 of your month free, and obviously there's a lot of recovery time there as well, but that is like side hustle central. So that's really, really cool. I mean, my brother is an ER doctor, and I can relate. He's not he's not, working as a handyman in his side time, but I can relate from just knowing how crazy the schedule is, and how it's like there's one week where he's working overnights all week, but then there's some other weeks where he's like maybe like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, he's off 3 days in a row. It's crazy. I mean, these super, super amazing careers, what the schedule can look like. So what did it look like getting the ball rolling with this? Like, what happened after you found that you couldn't find anything on Google about a solution like this?
The good thing is I had worked for several startups, as I had mentioned. I worked for several startups in the past, but I had never been the founder of my own startup. But I think I had one thing going for me, and that was, I guess, I was naive, right? I didn't know then how hard it was going to be, or how difficult, or how challenging, because I was part of Shazam, and Apple bought them for 400 million, and I was part of PhotoBucket, and Fox Interactive Media bought them for like 300 million. I'm like, this is easy. Like, and I know all the founders, and I'm like, oh, if they can do it, I can do it. But it's really hard. So I guess the first step that I took was, is there a market out there for it? I just got in the car and drove around to fire stations near me, near my house in Dallas. And I just went in and said, hey, if you had an app like Angie's List, Home Advisor, TaskRabbit, you name it, would you use it? Right. So let me explain it to you. You download an app on your phone, you'll get a job request. If it's something you want to do and it's paying enough money and you know how to do it, would you accept it? If you don't want to, just decline it. So overwhelming, it was like, yeah, why wouldn't I put that app on my phone if I can get these requests and I can just ignore them if I don't want them? But if I do, I'll take them. So that was the first step, Max, was just, making sure that if I'm going to build this, that it's going to get used. So I went everywhere that I could in Dallas, and then I just started Googling fire stations in Columbus, Ohio, or Indianapolis, Indiana, or just wherever it might be. And I started calling fire stations and saying, hey, here's who I am, here's what I'm thinking. Would you guys be interested? Just because I didn't want it to be just Dallas based. But again, overwhelmingly, yeah, all the firefighters are like, yeah, that would be really cool. And then on the demand side, you're like, okay, there's already a market for this. There's already apps that are doing this. We're just putting a different spin on it, and in my opinion, doing it better by using a supply a labor supply that no one else has tapped into before, that people trust and people feel good giving back to. So I wasn't worried about the demand side. I knew that Thumbtack was valued at like 200 some $1 million, or it's actually more than that's like $2 billion, I think.
Yeah, nor here nor there.
Right. It's a lot, and so I knew that there was a market for it on the demand side.
I think you set a record for the number of times calling a fire station without any need for like fire help.
Right. Yeah. It's awkward, right? You're calling them, but
it's not an emergency.
one of the things that they said when I was making those phone calls is that, Dave, you would not believe, we don't get phone calls, but you would not believe how many times people just walk into the station and be like, "Hi, my name's so and so. I've got this ceiling fan that I need hung in my family room. I'm afraid to climb ladders, or maybe I'm just a little bit too old to do it now. Can one of you nice gentlemen do it?" So it was already organically happening. We just kind of made it easier.
Definitely did. So there was kind of the phase at the start, and I'm sure it's continuing, of kind of rallying firefighters and finding firefighters and fire stations who are interested in getting involved with this. What has been the biggest challenge on kind of the outward marketing side and getting this out to homeowners and potential users?
So at first, we didn't know what the main, I guess, target audience would be. So that was the biggest challenge. My background's in marketing again, and so that to me was a challenge that I wasn't afraid to tackle. The Facebook ad, using Facebook is great, right? Because we talked about this earlier, but you go to one website and they follow you around everywhere. Same with Facebook. You can retarget on Facebook and do all those kinds of things. But basically, I cast a wide net first, and then I was able to, looking at the analytics from Facebook, who are the people that are actually clicking on my ads, who are downloading my app, who are requesting jobs, and it was overwhelmingly adults 55 plus. So it was usually grandma. And I didn't know that at first, but it made a lot of sense, right? I
hold on, my parents aren't going to be happy with that.
I will say, anyone over 70 who is like, I am not climbing a ladder anymore. I cannot pick up this couch and move it anymore because
there we go.
I might hurt myself or whatever it might be. But that was really the audience that was responding well. So that was the challenge at first, because you have to spend money to figure that out. I bootstrapped from the beginning. Marketing's not cheap, whether it's on Facebook. We used Nextdoor was another platform that we used, and of course Google. But it was expensive, and it's expensive learning, but it's something that you have to do because you don't know what type of adoption your product or service is going to get until you put it out there. And you've got to be willing not to assume ahead of time, because you could waste a lot of money marketing to the wrong people. So I do think that was the biggest challenge, figuring out who was going to use this service the most, and spending the money to do that.
What have you found so far as the thing that people enjoy most about using Hidrent?
I think that it makes people feel good about giving back to the members of our firefighter communities. It really is. They're going to need the job done anyway. They're going to need the ceiling fan hung. They're going to need the leaves cleaned out of their gutters or their Christmas lights put up on their house. But I think that I've heard this. They felt safe. They trusted the guys that were there, and it felt good for them where they were putting their money. And I think that's important too, because a lot of times you're like, oh my gosh, you're dreading the fact that I have to get these leaves cleaned out of my gutters before the first snowfall, or it's going to ruin my foundation and all that stuff. And you're like, you have to do it. So you're going to have to put your money somewhere. This just makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's really heartwarming. I mean, to your point, it needs to get done anyway. Why not use the help of somebody who knows their stuff, but also somebody who's already doing such good for society, just has a lot of spare time on their hands. Was there a lot of effort involved in educating and training the firefighters that, hey, this is a new way to do things?
Not really. The good thing about using firefighters as your primary source of labor supply is that we know where to find them. At least we know where to find them.
That's true. Just look for red.
Yeah. And so the way that we acquire firefighters is, oddly enough, because of my background in digital media, is through direct mail. I put together little swag boxes and send it to fire stations, and they get them, and they, there's things that they can hang on their fridge, or things that, magnets and chip clips and coffee mugs and that kind of stuff. At first, using the technology, and we haven't really gotten into the technology behind it, was a learning curve. But the idea of, oh, here's an app exclusively for me to help me make more money during my off-duty days, and all I have to do is stuff that I've been doing before, but just do it through this app. That wasn't difficult.
So the technology, so that wasn't inspired by your comment at all.
Right. Teed it up.
Exactly. The technology, and real quick, shout out my family business, Hippo Direct, who specializes in mailing lists and direct mail.
Cool.
It's really cool when you hear about businesses that have kind of used direct mail to fuel their growth, because as you know, it can be so impactful. So on the technology side of things, what was involved in creating this app and getting it to a place that people can actually use it? And it's not just, crashing all the time like I imagine every new app is.
Yeah, so that is by far the biggest challenge that I've encountered in starting the business. And I'm a non-technical solo founder, and that's probably the hardest thing, right? Is I didn't have anyone technical by my side, and it wasn't for lack of trying. I just really couldn't find anybody at the time that wanted to go into this journey with me. So I used a development company here in Dallas, and I probably spent a lot more than I should have, or knowing then what I know now, what I could have, but spent over $100,000 developing an app, thinking this has to be perfect. If I'm going to take this to market, it's got to be great. There can't be any bugs or crashes or anything like that. I don't think it matters how much money you spend; it's still not going to be perfect. There's still going to be bugs. There's still going to be crashes. There's still going to be things that the market will tell you that they want differently or they don't want at all that you thought they would. The best advice, and again, if I could go back 4 years in time and start over, I would do it this way: is to not let perfection impede progress, and not think that it has to be perfect before it goes to market. Put that MVP product out there. And I didn't even know what an MVP product was back then. I was, again, first time
You think
founder.
basketball.
Yeah, I was like, okay, the most valuable player or whatever. But anyway, it's like you learn these things as you go, and you fail, and then you learn from it. That was probably our biggest challenge, or my biggest challenge. And if there's anybody that is listening now that's getting ready to start a company, a technology company, or building an app, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just get something out there, and make sure that people like it, right? And the people use it, and then you can fix it as you go. So the technology was tough. It was a learning experience for sure.
Definitely. It's all, I feel like startups are just a constant series of a roller coaster of learning experiences. I love your thoughts on perfectionism and just getting out there and tweaking it down the line. I mean, it's much easier to do it that way than to get it perfect and then launch it. How did you get better over time at not being such a perfectionist?
Once my bank account was dry, I had to do a few different.
That's the slap in the face you need.
Yeah, I had to do a few things differently once the bank account was dry, and I, kind of tapped into the 401k and all of those things that most entrepreneurs have to do. Is that, I'm not asking for anyone to feel sorry for me. I love it. I love the journey, and I love where I am now. But yeah, I mean, so when you have money to spend, you're like, okay, well, let's make it good. But when you don't have money to spend, you've got to be a little bit more flexible, and you got to think outside the box a little bit. And that's what we did. Like we put a lot of money into this thing. Of course, it was losing money because we're spending a bunch on advertising. We spent a ton on technology. We found out all the things that needed to be fixed, and then I offshored it after that. So I built version 2 of our app, which is a much better version for a third of what I paid on the original app.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Funny it works that way.
Yeah.
On that financial note, at the time of this recording, you're coming off an awesome round of or series of fundraising. Republic raised around $100,000 to help support the business. Just amazing. What tips can you share on crowdfunding?
So that was actually our second crowdfunding campaign. We did use Republic at the end of last year into the beginning of this year. And then before that, we had used Micro Ventures and raised 50,000 through that. I think that I'm a true believer in crowdfunding, and I think that Hydrant is perfectly poised to be successful with crowdfunding. I think that a lot of angel investors invest with their heart, and that's what we're getting is $100 here and there, 500, maybe 1,000, of people who are like, what a great mission, what a great idea, what a great impact on our society to use these guys on their off days to make a little extra money while helping me out. So that made a ton of sense. The appeal of what we're doing. to the general public of people that are getting into investing. And then I think another thing too about crowdfunding is you have to advertise to get people to your crowdfunding site. And whenever we spent money on advertising for the crowdfunding campaign, we would see a spike in business. So we may not reach that investor, but we're reaching somebody that says, "Oh, cool, I'm not going to invest, but I'll use it." So we're killing two birds with one stone there. I think crowdfunding's great.
It is, and there's so many people out there who are probably way more generous and willing to help than you'd think. That's great. Congrats on the initial round as well. Where you're just adding more fundraising as we speak. But shout out previous guest Emily Griffith from Little Bucks, who also at the time of this recording is coming off an amazing round as well, episode 21. In addition to kind of what you've learned on the financial side, as well as not being overly perfect with your product, just getting it out there, MVP. What has been the most helpful looking back in actually growing this thing?
For me, it was joining, and I'll give a shout out to the Capital Factory here in Texas. Again, I am a solo, non-technical founder, first time.
It's important to restate that so people don't ask you questions about Shazam or something.
Right. I had no idea what I was doing. And I mentioned it earlier. I think that allowed me the ability to start a company because I didn't know how hard it was going to be. So, but I was able to participate in the Capital Factory, which is, it's like an accelerator program, but it's more of a mentor network here in Texas. So there's offices in Dallas, Austin, as well as Houston. At the time, a few years ago when I joined, it was, I was driving to Austin. I was working out of the Dallas office. And it was great because opening myself up to advice from hundreds, if not thousands of people was one of the smartest things that I did. Knowing that I don't know it all and being okay with that and using that network of mentors, people that were smart in marketing, people that were smart in accounting, people that were smart in technology, and people that had done this before, and just you get these meetings with them and you get to spend an hour picking their brain and learning a little bit about some of the challenges that they've already faced and overcome and how they did it. And that was the biggest thing that I did that I think helped us move forward.
So as a solo non-technical founder, which I think is the first time we mentioned this, what sort of area of the business have you gained the most from insight from others on?
The technology part of it, I would say.
Okay, I teach you up for that one.
That was pretty easy, right? Definitely. So yes, the technology part of it is something that I've learned a ton about. I did have a little bit of a technology background, I guess, with some of the companies that I worked for in the past, and I understand technology and its importance and how it works. That was probably the most impactful meetings that I had were those guys who really understood the technology and how to make it better. The other thing too is just learning about owning a business in general, like being the CEO of a company and understanding what customer acquisition costs mean and lifetime value of a customer and all these words that I didn't even know of before. What is CAC? Somebody said CAC, and I'm like, what does CAC mean? So learning all of the
what does CAC mean?
Customer acquisition cost.
Okay. No comment.
I didn't either. So it's just these things that you learn, right? And have the more conversations that you have, the more people that you can bring into your network to help you out, the better off you're going to be. Don't go at it alone because you're not going to make it.
That's incredible advice. No one can do anything on their own. You can do some things on your own, but you know what I mean. While I clearly don't always know my acronyms, I do know my podcast acronyms. That rolled off the tongue. If you are interested in a podcast for your business, for your brand, but it's not in your best interest to do all those minute behind-the-scenes details that can take hours on days, on weeks, on hours, and I'll just throw years in there as well. Email me at max@maxpodcasting.com. I will help you save time with your high-quality podcast and deliver a podcast you are truly happy about. Email me at max@maxpodcasting.com. Now, to switch gears a little bit and get back to Dave. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's get to inspiration and creativity. I want to call back to how you mentioned that you've literally, you've invested so much in this business personally that you've needed to tap into your own 401k. Like there's a lot of sacrifices you've made. What is it that keeps you going, keeps you inspired, and also, creative, coming up with solutions to keep fueling this business?
Well, now it's how do I get back to where I used to be? left a left a six-figure income job to not get paid at all, and had money in the bank, and now really have no money in the bank plus credit card debt. My inspiration right now is my wife, and she really wants a pool in the backyard. So every day I get up,
There we go. The
how can
pool,
we make
everything goes back to that pool.
happy wife, happy life? And yeah, so but really it is. I mean, she inspires me. She keeps pushing me and supporting me through this, right? And there's, you've got to be careful, right? Because we went from a point where we had a lot of money to now having negative money, and you have to have a partner in life that's okay with that and believes in you and understands that it's a process and you got to trust it. So that inspires me. And then I have three boys. They're 10, 12, and 14. They keep me grounded and inspire me daily. When I put work away and I go play catch with them in the backyard, again, we don't have a pool, so we got plenty of room to play catch.
Okay, your wife just turned off this episode.
Right, she did. So it is my family that keeps me grounded. It's my wife and my kids that inspire me and help me get through some of the challenging times.
I appreciate you being so candid. I think the financial and bank account side of things is something that so many new entrepreneurs know that they're going to have to commit a lot on the financial side, obviously tons on the non-financial side as well. There's a level of stress that comes with knowing that you're not making X amount, or you're not making nearly as much as it used to be. In addition to your family really being your rock and the dream goal of the pool, what kind of helps you on the day-to-day to be like, okay, you know what, like we're not in the financial place we want to be right now, but we're going to get there one day? What keeps you going?
I don't look too far ahead. I think, what can I do today to make it better? What can I do today to make the business better? What can I do today to make our financial situation better? And not try and think about, oh my gosh, are we still going to be broke 5 years from now? You set small goals, daily goals. Today, can I do something today that is going to make my financial situation better, or grow this business? And if you just focus on that and just get through each day and have these little mini wins, then I think you're going to not go crazy as much as you would if you were like, oh my, like you looked at your bank account every day and you're like, oh my God, it used to be this and now it's this. And
Oh, that would be torture if you do that in like a daily routine.
yeah. So it's, again, it's those little things. I'm a big believer that it's just the little things that you do consistently over time that are going to reward you the most in the future. And think about it as like working out, or like an exercise program. You've got those people that are like, for the next 12 weeks, I'm going to do this program and I'm going to lose so much weight and then I'm going to be awesome and it's going to be great. Or you could just say, I'm going to do maybe 20 minutes of cardio a day, and actually something that I can stick with. And so I think that's more important. It's the small things over time that you do consistently that are better.
Exactly. One thing at a time. It's intimidating when you think about the long run. Like it's good to have like your long-term goals and visions and, start doing like a full sketch of the pool or something like that, for example. But it's much more attainable and practical to just take stuff kind of a day by day and, okay, what can I do today to get better? What other hobbies do you have and kind of ways that you like to unwind in addition to playing catch with your kids?
Yeah, so that's one of them, is just spending time with the kids. I love to golf. I've been golfing since I was little. I did it in high school and did that in other sports, but golf is one of those that you can do when you're in your 40s too. And so I love doing that as much time as I can get to do it. It's kind of a commitment. Unwinding and relaxing, taking the dogs for a walk, just a lot of peaceful things. Like, what can I do to shut everything else out and just kind of be, alone with my thoughts, or without the thoughts of the business and that type of thing. So, and it could just be watching a show on Netflix or something like that, but just finding that time where you can unwind and relax and get a little bit of time to yourself and quiet.
And do you have a favorite go-to show on Netflix at the time of this recording?
That's funny. Right now I am watching Silicon Valley, so it doesn't really.
That doesn't take you away from Startup World at all.
It does not. It does not. But what I love about it is, well, first of all, it's hilarious, and the other thing I love about it is a lot of the things that I think they say, and it's, I can't say it to people, but they say it, and it's just hilarious. So That's the one I'm watching now. I just got done with Game of Thrones, and then I started Silicon Valley, and I think I'm going to go into one of those WandaVision ones or something Disney next to kind of.
Ooh. Yeah, it's it's funny. Silicon Valley, literally, it's funny, but
Yeah.
it is a great show. But I think what they do so well is they made a lot of parts of it really realistic, and like the key people behind the show and people that they've talked to, I know, are like heavily involved in the Silicon Valley or startup space. So they made it really, really cool and realistic. And I don't know what it is, but I'm a sucker for dry humor and deadpan, and like everything Guilfoyle says, I just crack up because that guy. I don't know. Maybe it's because I had a teacher, a business teacher in high school. His last name was Guilfoyle, and this guy's like the complete opposite of him. But like everything that character says is hilarious. And I recently found out that he was like a little kid in Freaks and Geeks. So crazy.
Oh,
There's your Hollywood trivia for the day.
very cool. Thank you.
So let's get to a fan favorite segment called the Wild Business Shout Out of the Week.
The Wild Business Shout Out of the Week!
That deserves to be, have its own spin-off, Silicon Valley Harmonica Solo. Wild Business Shout Out of the Week. This is where we talk about a creative marketing campaign or approach that caught our attention. And there's an ad you were served on Facebook, and now you are just hop teeing it into the sunset. Can you take us through what you saw and what you like about the product?
Yeah, I will. So yeah, the name of the product was Hop Tea. It's out of Boulder, Colorado, and I saw it on Facebook. They're like, I've been looking at some low carb things lately. I'm trying to lose a little bit of weight, like as we all probably are.
You look great, Dave.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've got a body perfect for a podcast.
I take offense to that. No, go ahead.
Yeah, it's called Hop Tea, and basically all it is it's hops mixed with tea, white tea, black tea, green tea, you name it. They brew it like you would be brewing a microbrew beer, and it tastes like beer. Just to give you some background, a few years back, I was diagnosed with celiac, which means you can no longer have wheat, barley, or anything like that. So my beer game was pretty much over, and they do have some gluten-free beers, but I quit drinking beer altogether. When I saw that ad, I'm like, oh my gosh, this tastes like beer, but I'm not drinking beer, and it has 0 calories. This is great. And I bought it, and they shipped it over, and it was amazing. I have at least 1 or 2 a day, and it's like, again, 0 calories, 0 carbs. There's nothing in it but tea and hops, and hops is just a flower. But what I thought was really cool too is they do a good job of following up with email. And again, we mentioned it's called Hop Tea, but they sent an email last week, and it really caught my eye because it kind of coincides with the evolution of any startup really that has a specific product, I guess. They sent an email saying, we're no longer Hop Tea, we're Hop Lark, because we can add hops to just about anything. We can add it to water and make hop water. We can add it to juice and make hop juice. So they basically have made the decision that we don't want to be focusing on one brand. Let's become a huge company called Hop Lark, and let's have a product line that involves hops with a lot of different types of drinks. And I thought that was cool because I was like, that's smart, guys. You maybe you've been watching Shark Tank and you realize that you don't have a company, you have a product. And now I think that they've kind of realized that, and they not only have a product, they have a company.
Yeah, it's hopping. So what is it? Is it like a flavoring?
Yeah, I mean, hops, and I had to do some research about it because I didn't know what hops were. But it's technically a flower, and it does add the flavor to it. And there are different flavors of hops. So you can have a citrus hop, you can have kind of a rosy hop. There are different flavors, and it literally tastes like beer with 0 calories, 0 alcohol, 0 carbs, and it's pretty amazing. And that's another thing cool about it too, is the different flavors, so you don't get kind of bored of just one of them. But yeah, I guess hops is a flower.
Oh yeah. I didn't realize it was like actual hops that are in there. I guess that makes sense from the celiac standpoint. It's not the hops then that cause you problems. It's the wheat or yeast.
It's the wheat and the barley. Yeah, exactly.
The wheat and the barley in the beer. Well, that sounds like a really cool idea, and they've addressed the need, clearly come up with a clever product. How did they find you?
Because I had been searching probably, or at least viewing ads on Facebook that were about weight loss, about low carb, about those types of things. I probably were searching for Whole30, and it just all was relative to them. And it just goes back to the intelligence, the machine learning that Facebook, and not only Facebook, but all media properties have. Wherever you are online, they're gonna know what you're interested in and come back to you.
You don't have to sugarcoat it. I think you were just searching the term podcast body.
Maybe I was. Yeah.
The truth comes out. Hey, it's a constant effort. So that's a bit of an unusual product in a good way. So let's get to some unusual stuff about you in a good way. Pet peeves, quirks, weird talents. I'll start off with quirks. What is something your wife or kids calls you out for that's a little bit quirky about your personality?
I guess that I have a little bit of OCD. If I set something down, it has to be perfectly on the corner and parallel or perpendicular to whatever I set it down on.
Oh, I'm exactly the same way. And in
Are
fact,
you really?
I'm readjusting my seat just to line up thing. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Everything has to just be like parallel or perpendicular, like perfectly aligned, I guess, when I set it down. And then it's just, so my kids will mess with me and they'll move it, and I'll be like, "Come on, guys, you know what drives me crazy?" And I'll move it back and make it straight again. That's one thing. And then just in parallel with that is when I listen to music in the car, it has to be at like an even number. The volume has to be on like an even number. I won't listen to anything on an odd number. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah. I'm in a similar vein. I mean, as far as things being lined up and stuff getting to you like that, we've talked in previous episodes about how it's apparently a pretty common thing for at least one half of the couple to leave cupboards and drawers open and stuff. And the other person is usually like, this should be closed and organized. And
Right.
my girlfriend Dana and I, that's exactly the same thing. Now we have like an ongoing joke where she'll like leave a cupboard open and see how long it takes me to notice. It's a great thing. What about pet peeves? So in addition to that, what's something that kind of grinds your gears?
What grinds my gears is when people grind their teeth. When people don't chew ice around me. If you're gonna chew ice around me, it is gonna freak me out, and I will put a pillow over my ears and scream, because I don't know what it is, if it's the sound or just makes my teeth feel cold when you do it. But that's one of my pet peeves, is when you crunch on ice or chew on ice. I don't know why, it just drives
Wow, you're just so cold-blooded about it.
me crazy.
How about weird talents? What's a party trick? Something that you're really good at, or just kind of, hey, it's cool, I can do this, but it doesn't have any impact whatsoever on your business?
Holy cow. I wish that I had some like a go-to party trick. I think I'm really good with dad jokes. I can't I can't think of any off the top of my head, of course, right now.
That's how good you are.
Yeah, that is how good I am. But just stupid dad jokes that I would have never thought were funny 20 years ago, but that are hilarious to me now. I'm trying to think of one. Like, so there was one about a pterodactyl, and something that you saw a pterodactyl and you were terrified. I can't remember what it was, but
you nailed it with the delivery.
Right.
I'm the same way. I'm a sucker for dad jokes, but I don't think I know many dad jokes. It's just my jokes are not funny. I don't know many off the top of my head, so that's
that is one of the things. I always try to bring humor into a situation if I'm going out. I use humor as a way to, I guess, ease my own nerves. You know how some people use humor as a shield or a wall, and I do it too. I think but it's not a bad thing. I just think humor is one of those things that we should all have in our lives, because it feels good to laugh. It makes you feel better, and so that's what I try to do. That is my go-to when I'm at a party or whatever. I just try to say something stupid that'll make people laugh.
Yeah, and in my case, it doesn't take much effort. Shout out Harry Carey with the holy cow. That was a nice little subtle Chicago vibes there.
I love Harry Carey. I miss him.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, let's wrap up with some rapid fire Q&A. You ready for it?
I'm ready.
Holy cow. All right, let's get wild. Let's say you just won the Masters, which very realistic, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
What would you serve at your champions dinner?
Brisket with gluten-free, I guess, mac and cheese, and some kind of vegetable with it. I guess I'll go with corn on the cob. But yeah, I mean, some kind of barbecue. It would definitely be barbecue related.
My mouth is watering. I'm not going to start sucking on ice or chewing on ice. Don't worry. But
I love a good barbecue. I love a good brisket. Living in Texas, we get a lot of good stuff down here. So
absolutely. You mentioned that pretty recently you were diagnosed as celiac, and one of my best buddies, Jason, is the same way. And so going back to college, always remember and like know what to keep in mind as far as, what food you have around and how he kind of approaches alcoholic beverages and everything. What has been the biggest adjustment for you personally?
I would say tortillas. I love tacos too. So again, being in Texas, we have our Tex-Mex and we have our barbecue, and I love tacos, and I love a flour tortilla that's soft and thick, and I can't do that now. It's got to be either corn or something that's not as good, and I really miss that. Yeah, I would say a flour tortilla. If I had and this happened to me. We did a spring break vacation in Puerto Rico. I asked the guy when I got some shrimp tacos, and I'm like, can you make sure these are corn tortillas? I have celiac, I have a gluten allergy. Tried to explain it to them. And they're like, yeah, they're corn tacos. They're corn. And he brought it to me and I ate it. And as I was eating, I'm like, I don't know for sure if this is a corn tortilla or not, but I went with it anyway and I ate it. And 4 hours later, I was up all night throwing up.
Oh, man.
Made my vacation a nightmare.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's no joke.
Yeah, it's no joke at all.
But yeah, I feel like corn is a lifesaver then. I mean, thankfully corn is very good. And there's a lot of things you can do with it. So I imagine that comes up big. Another adjustment, moving from Chicago, which is not always 100 degrees and sunny, to Dallas, which probably too often is 100 degrees and sunny. What's been the craziest adjustment other than the weather?
Other than the weather, I think the people in Texas are, oh gosh, I don't want to anger anybody.
Yeah.
People in Texas have a more laid back vibe to them, if you will. I think when you live in Chicago, and I lived in the city, and I lived near like Lincoln Park, Wrigleyville, and it's really congested. Those are just some very congested areas. Things are tight. People are stacked on top of one another. And I think it leads to a little bit of, maybe it's put some people in bad moods. And I've noticed that Texas is just so big, so spread out. Like you have your space and then some. And I think that maybe it makes people a little bit more laid back and relaxed, is that you're not all up in everyone's business all the time.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. It's a different vibe, and there's a lot. Yeah, I mean, it can be a different world, but it's cool you experience. I mean, I spent a summer down in Dallas internship for rap after my junior year, which was very, very cool. I mean, I loved it there. So I'm like you, getting to experience some of the Midwest and then the South, and now I'm on the East Coast. Like it's just fun to experience different areas.
Yeah, and we haven't even touched on. I actually grew up in Nebraska. I moved to Chicago. I moved to Boston. I moved back to Chicago and then to Dallas. So I've been around, and I like you said, I love it. I love being able to experience different areas of our country, right? And then how people are different in those different areas of the country, and it's exciting. You only live once. You got to experience as much as you can.
So that begs one more very, very important question. I mean, we were just talking about corn, and then you bring up Nebraska. I know, like, the reputation of Nebraska is corn. Is there really as much corn in Nebraska as everybody talks about?
There's technically more corn in Indiana than, I think it's Indiana.
Really?
Indiana or Iowa.
I believe it.
Yeah, than there is in Nebraska. But yeah, we're the corn huskers, and I do love corn on the cob. And I mentioned it a couple times already. I guess that comes with my childhood and growing up. But it's not the staple of everyone's diet in Nebraska by any means. It's just that's what our football team was named, and that's what we get known as.
Yeah, I thought it was like every day breakfast, lunch, and dinner is corn, and then you have some corn pudding for dessert. Dave, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Really, really appreciate you sharing the hydrant story, the corn story, the pool story, all the stories. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing your tips and just the awesome stuff you're doing for the world. Where is the best place for people to find out more and actually use Hydrant and connect with you?
Yeah, so Hydrant is currently available in Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, Phoenix, Denver, and Tampa. So those are the 7 markets that we're currently live. Anybody listening right now that's in one of those markets, you could go to www.hydrant.com and submit a job request.
HIDRENT.
Yeah, good point. So it's not spelled the traditional HYDRANT. We use HIDRENT because it has the word hire in it. The HIRE is already in there, and we feature that in our logo and things like that. So kind of a fun play on words that I was able to come up with.
There you go. That's your finest work as far as dad jokes go. A dad joke business.
and my email is dave@hydrant.com, and people can feel free to email me if they have any questions or need anything.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thanks again. And then last thing here, final thoughts. The stage is yours. It could be a quote. It could be a dad joke, play on words, whatever you want. Just kind of final words of wisdom to send us off here.
My favorite quote, the thing that I live by, is don't be afraid to fail. It's the only way you will succeed. And that's kind of how I view my entrepreneurial journey. Is I've failed miserably many times, but if I hadn't, I wouldn't know what I know now.
That sort of advice never fails. Thank you so much, Dave, for sharing your awesome stories, your awesome company, your awesome everything. And thank you, Wild listeners, for tuning in to another episode. If you want to hear more wild stories like this one, make sure to follow the Wild Business Growth Podcast on your favorite platform and tell a friend about the podcast. You can also find us on Good Pods, where you can find all the podcasts I am listening to and many other awesome people are listening to. And if you want to learn more about podcast production, you can do so at MaxPodcasting.com. Until next time, let your business run wild.
Bring on the bongos!